Assalamu alaikum friends, my name is Bilal Khan and this is my 33rd video of DevOps. So in this video I am going to show you a tool that is called Prometheus. So Prometheus is a free software application that is used for monitoring and alerting. Alright? And the next point is that the record or the matrix. So the matrix is basically a record that you need to keep in mind. I am going to explain to you the matrix later in this video. But you need to keep this in mind that the record that is monitored is going to be stored in a time series database. Alright? And that record is built using a HTTP pull model. Alright? So the record will be pulled to the HTTP and then it will be shown to you. And that record that will be stored in the database will be taken from the application, server or services. Alright? So different kind of applications or different kind of services, the data will be taken and then the data will be stored in the time series database. Alright. So the Prometheus will hit the target to collect the metrics. Alright. Show the data or even alert if some threshold are met. Alright. So it will hit the target to collect the metrics using the pull method and then it will show the data or even alert us if something is happened bad, or if something bad happened to it. Alright. So now let's take a look at why Prometheus is important and why Prometheus is used. So it contributes to the DevOps system by monitoring cloud native applications, infrastructure or hundreds of microservices. Alright, so it contributes to the DevOps system because DevOps is a complex system, so it will monitor them by the cloud native applications, the infrastructure or hundreds of microservices that are present in the DevOps system. So it fits both machine-centric monitoring as well as monitoring of highly dynamic service-oriented architecture. Alright, so it is designed for reliability. So it will quickly diagnose the problems. And each Prometheus server is standalone. It means that it is not dependent on network storage or other remote services. You don't need an extensive infrastructure to use it. Alright? It is very simple. The most important thing that differentiates Prometheus from other time series databases is that it is pull-based service. Alright, so it is working on a pull-based mechanism. Other services like Amazon, CloudWatch, Nagios, New Relic, these services are working on the push-based mechanism. But the Prometheus is working on the pull-based mechanism that it will pull the data if it is required. Alright, the problem with the push-based mechanism is that when you are working with many microservices, and each service is pushing their metrics to the monitoring system, so it will create a high load of traffic within your infrastructure. Why? Because the data is not required, but it is pushing the data or the metric to the monitoring system. So the pull-based system will work on the opposite side, that if the data is required, only in that case it will pull the data, otherwise it will not pull that data. So the infrastructure is overloaded as a result if it is pushed with constant push requests. Alright. So it pulls the request in order to retrieve metrics from them. Alright. And node exporter or application exporter that we are going to discuss later on in this video. So Prometheus retrieves the metrics via HTTP call. Alright. So the HTTP call will pull the data and the Prometheus will give it to it. Node exporter and application exporter will listen to a particular port, alright, and then a Prometheus server will initiate a HTTP call to this particular exporter and fetch system or application metrics from the end. Alright. So continuous monitoring in Prometheus. So monitoring applications and application server is an important part of DevOps culture and processes. Alright. So it is an important part. You continuously want to monitor applications and servers for application exception, server CPU, memory usage or storage spikes. So in this way, you will continuously monitor the applications with the help of Prometheus. So Prometheus will also give the notification if the CPU or memory goes up or down so that you can perform appropriate actions according to it. Alright. So this is the advantage of the Prometheus, that it will constantly monitor. So if something bad happened to it, it will notify you and you can perform the appropriate actions according to it. That's why Prometheus is used in continuous monitoring. So now let's take a look at the Prometheus architecture. So the core Prometheus has a main component called Prometheus server. Alright, so this is the core component of the Prometheus that does the actual monitoring service. So Prometheus server is made up of three parts. Alright, the first part is the retrieval, then the storage, and the last part is the HTTP server. So the retrieval part will pull the matrix data from the application, servers, services, etc. Alright, once it is pulled, then it will store the metric data inside the time series database. Alright, and then it will accept the query using the HTTP method, use the HTTP server, and show it to you in the dashboard. Alright, so now let's take a look at the targets. So we are going to explain it here, but first of all, let's take a look at the target and matrix. Then you can understand what is these target, storage, and retrieval will do. So the things that Prometheus monitors are called the targets. Alright, so the targets are the things that will be monitored. Alright, in short, the Prometheus server monitors the target. Alright, each unit of a target, such as current CPU status, memory usage, or any other specific unit that you want to monitor, is called a metric. So the unit of a target is called a metric. Alright, so Prometheus server collects metric from the target over HTTP, stores them locally or remotely, and then displays them back in the Prometheus server. So Prometheus server scraps or pull a target from a specific interval, for a specific interval like 30 seconds or 1 minute. Alright, so it will pull the data, pull the target, and after that it will store it in a time series database. Alright, so you define the targets to be scrapped, and then also define the time interval for scrapping metrics in the Prometheus.yaml configuration file. So you will also write all the things that what are the targets to be defined and what is the time interval. You will mention this in the Prometheus.yaml configuration file. After that, you get the metric details by querying from the Prometheus time series database, where the Prometheus stores metrics, and it uses a query language called PromQL in the Prometheus server to query metrics about the target. Alright, so it will use the query language PromQL in the Prometheus server to query metrics about the target. So in other words, you ask the Prometheus server via PromQL query language to show us a status of a particular target at one particular time. Alright, so now let's take a look at the types of the Prometheus server. So the first type that I have shown you here is the storage. So Prometheus has the time series database that stores all the metrics data, like the current CPU usage or the number of exceptions in an application. Alright, so Prometheus has a data retrieval type. This is the retrieval part. So Prometheus has a data retrieval type that is responsible for getting or pulling the metrics from the applications, servers, or other target resources, and storing and pushing them into the database. Alright, so once the data is retrieved, sorry, I have not written it above. So once the data is received from the or pulled from the applications, then the data will be saved inside the storage, and then after that the HTTP server. So the Prometheus accepts the queries for the data, stored data, web server, or the server API that is used to display it on a dashboard, either through Prometheus dashboard or other data visualization tool called Grafana. So Prometheus provides client libraries in a number of languages that you can use to provide health status of your application. So you can find the client libraries here if you click on this link. Alright. So Prometheus is not only about application monitoring. You can use exporter that I have shown you above, that you can use the exporter to monitor third-party systems also. Alright, so it is not only specific for application monitoring, so you can use the third-party monitoring also with the help of exporter. So exporter is a piece of software that gets existing metrics from a third-party system and eventually export them to metric format that the Prometheus server can eventually understand. Alright, so Prometheus has a list of exporters for different services that you can find them here. Alright, so after that, let's take a look at the Prometheus metrics and its types. So further, after the metrics, there are further 4 types of the metrics that I'm going to explain it here. So each unit of a target, such as the current CPU status, memory usage, or any specific unit that you want to monitor, is called a metric. So I have discussed it previously that the single unit of a target will be called a metric, and that target may be a current CPU usage that will show, or memory usage, or any other specific unit that it will show. Alright, and this unit will be monitored, and this unit will be called a metric. So the server collects the metrics, stores them locally or remotely, alright, and then displays them on the Prometheus graphical user interface. So once the metric is collected and stored in the time series database, then it will be shown to us by the dashboard or the graphical user interface. So the metrics have 4 types. The first type is the counter type. So a counter is a cumulative metric that represents a single value that can only increase or be reset to 0 on restart. Alright, so this has a single value that can only increase, not decrease. And it can, the last limit of this increasing value is 0, alright, if it is restarted. So to represent the number of requests served, for example, tasks completed or errors. So it will show me the numbers of requests served, that how many requests that are increased, or how many requests that are served, it will show me in the increasing order. Or how many tasks are completed, it will show me in the increasing order. Or if it is 0, then it will show me the error. Alright. So don't use the counter to expose a value, alright, that decreases, because we have discussed that it will work on the increasing manner, it will pattern, it will not work on the decreasing pattern. So don't use a counter for the number of currently using processes. And after that, the gauge type. So the gauge is a metric that represents a single numerical value that can go up and down, alright. So it is used to measure temperature, current memory usage. Alright, so the histogram type. It takes many measurements of a value to later calculate averages or percentile. So it will take many measurements, and as a result of these measurements, they will calculate the averages or percentile. So you know what the range of the values, alright, will be upfront. So to take many measurements, you will be given a range of values. In between these values, you can take many measurements. Alright, so you can define your own. So for example, how long something took, or how big the size of the request was. Alright, so the next is the summary type. So it is similar to a histogram, but you do not know the range of the values that will be upfront. So in the histogram type, you are aware of the values, of the range of values, but in the summary type, you are not aware of the range of values. So you cannot use the histogram. Alright, so in this summary type. So read in details if you want to click on this link. And that's it for now. So I hope you liked this video. And if you liked it, then make sure to subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, then ask those questions in the comment section below. I'll be happy to answer all of them. So till then, goodbye.